Hello and welcome to today's webinar about self-service analytics. My name is Martin Kratky. I'm one of the directors of Managility. In this webinar, I would like to cover a little bit considerations and practical examples around self-service analytics, or in other words, how can you empower business end users to better cover various data analysis, modeling and prediction requirements and minimize the reliance on IT professionals. Initially, a few housekeeping words. If you have technical problems or a question, please use the question panel and I will address them immediately or at the end of the session. This webinar will be recorded and a video will be made available to you alongside the slides. Initially, a few words about us. Managility specializes in 4 areas: business cloud services, planning and reporting, generic business intelligence solutions, and marketing analytics. We are founded in 2003 and working with some fairly well-known clients in Asia Pacific. Our topic today is self-service, and you might remember a little bit of an era where the focus was less on self-service. These days it's all about empowering the user directly or the customer directly. In the context of BI, this means that the typical process steps in regards to integrating data, preparing data, and then the provision of data, be it in for analysis purposes, standard reports, dashboarding, data mining, and so on. A lot of it is moving more towards the end user, a little bit away from the IT experts. What is typically, though, an issue in this context is that BI tools very often don't provide the flexibility, and users start putting data into spreadsheet, which leads to the typical issues around maintenance, limited multi-user management functionalities, inconsistencies, and so on. So a strong focus of self-service analytics and the foundations of self-service analytics is to move away from that and really ensure that the users are working on a central data model that is also as much as possible managed by the business end users. And managed in this context means, of course, that the users are able to analyze the data, but also that they can use it for write back functionality, so writing data back into the system for forecasting, budgeting purposes. And then finally also around business modeling, so using the existing models that are typically driven by your source systems, but then either extend those models, for example, by simulating the introduction of a new product, the acquisition of a new entity, or just simple changes like calculation rules and so on. And then finally, on top of this data model, what we've learned to be as a key success factor is to cater for different needs, so different horses for different courses. There is not one self-service BI solution that covers everything, but typically it is different front ends for different user types, but preferably all, of course, on the same central data model. Important in this context is to keep in mind that the data model needs to cater for different user rights, so you need to be defined what are the users allowed to access from a data perspective, but also the functional roles. So, for example, are users allowed to create their own data models and so on. The typical architecture or the approach that we are using will be based on the customer requirements. We typically look at those and then make a recommendation on what technologies we recommend. It typically involves the design and integration of your data sources, building the central models that we've discussed before, and then enabling whatever front-end options are required in your project. In this webinar, I would like to present 3 technologies that we believe are a very good general option for various self-service BI requirements, that also offer a very good value proposition, but of course they're only 3 of many. Initially, I would like to start with an example of one of our clients, the City of Sydney, that we've worked with for quite a while. Initially for financial planning and reporting, so to streamline the processes at the City of Sydney in this regard. And then more recently, projects focused on parking meter analytics, and that's our first example today. So what you can see here now is the parking dashboard on sample data that is structured in the way that the City of Sydney requires, but of course it's not the actual data, it's just here for demonstration purposes. This looks already quite professional, but the interesting thing here is that what is used here is in the end just Excel. So we're just making good use of powerful Excel functionalities, but we have here in the background, or in this dashboard, we're not storing any data in Excel. All the data that you can see here is based on a central data model where the users can navigate and then, as you will see, also use that to flexibly change and interact with the dashboard. But let's have a quick look at how the users can use this dashboard. So for example, I can select filters here on the right side to select a particular precinct, for example, of the City of Sydney. And from this point onwards, I can then drill down. So for example, different suburbs in the city, from there into the street where parking meters are located. And then if there's interesting developments here, so we can see here 173,000. Let's have a look at what's happening here. Now we can see the result for the different parking meters. At the bottom here, we can change the date view, so we can very flexibly change, for example, to multiple months. So now we're covering February and March, or we can switch to a view of days. You can just select a particular day and see how this has, what the results were there. So a very easy way for the users to interact. The other option is here also, as I mentioned before, that what is shown here can be very easily changed using the data model. So as you can see in the data model, we have various fields, and one of them is transactions. So if you want to use now the transactions here in this dashboard element, we can just tick that, and now we have the transaction here in our data model as well. Finally, we also have the option to switch to a report. So we can switch here also to a report view, where now I can see then further details, and again drill down into specific areas or select particular filters and other options. So this was a short example for dashboarding. Let's go back to our dashboard. One cool feature that I quickly would like to show you as well is geoanalysis. So if you click here, we'll get into a geospatial view. And this is now the data that you saw before in the dashboard, but now in a geospatial layout. So as a user, I can now navigate to the detail that I would like to see, where I can see now the map of the City of Sydney. And all those blue bars are parking meter locations. So I can see, for example, here, this was the amount generated in this particular month. Again, as you saw before on the dashboard, I can now very flexibly interact with this, and for example pick the payment type as another option in my view. So for example, I select the payment type here, drag it down into the category, and now I will see that the data will get displayed and will be broken down into payment types. So I can see here, for example, we had this amount by credit card and this amount by cash. So a quite nice and effective way to analyze data. I can also see how data develops over time. So this shows now the time lapse from the starting point that I've set to now. So this as a quick demonstration of a dashboard in Excel. The next topic that I would like to cover is planning. And we'll cover planning on top of the ClearJelly model. ClearJelly is a solution that we are offering for cloud-based accounting systems like Xero, Sasu, and MYOB, where our solution automatically generates the underlying data model. In essence, the City of Sydney, for example, is using exactly the same, but in their case, the data model was built as a custom solution in regards to their Tech One system. Here, we are using a sample database from ClearJelly, so a sample database of the Xero cloud-based accounting solution. So what we can see here is again an Excel-based view. We're using here the Jedox Excel integration, but no data is stored directly in this sheet. So if we look here on this selector, on this point of view selector, we can double click and this will open up a dialog box, and here I can switch now to, for example, a different year. And as you can see, this automatically refreshes. So the cool thing here is you can design a report completely to your requirements, but all the data here is driven by the point of view that you're taking. So if you look at the underlying formula here, we see there's a formula here, and the formula picks a value from the central data server that can either be in the cloud or on premise in your IT department. And we can see it just fetches 2014, all months, the actuals for all entities and total revenue. So you can easily build a very flexible report just by using your existing Excel know-how. So for example, if you want to add a chart here, we can very easily do this by just using your normal Excel knowledge and creating a chart here that of course automatically adapts if you switch to, for example, a new point of view and a new year. So, but to be honest, the key thing that I wanted to demonstrate here is now write back and modeling. So let's assume this, we want to do now our 2016 budget. And at the moment we don't have any data there, of course. But what we can do here and what Jedox enables now is a very effective way to enter budget data on any level, so top down or bottom up, but also change your business, your underlying business model. So for example, here we can just now say, in the budgeting process, we typically start with existing data, so for example, last year's data, and for this purpose, I would like to copy last year's actuals into the new year. So we've got this widget here where I can select, I would like to copy 2015 and not budget, but I would like to copy the actuals. If I want to, I could also use increases, like I could say increase it by X% or some other changes. But let's keep it simple for the moment and just copy the data here. So we'll see we've copied now all the data from 2015. So we have now a total of $245,000. What we could do now is now implement a change here. So say we would like to assume an increase of, let's say, 20%. And it should be added. So what we can see now in real time, the system has generated this new change. So we've got now a total revenue of $295,000. This looked fairly simple, but you have to keep in mind this had to be done for all entities. So we've got a group of companies here. This had to be done for all time periods, for all accounts, and so on. So in a few seconds, you can implement a change that likely affected a few thousand cells. And all that happened not on the spreadsheet, but on the central server. So every user would see that current result. And of course, that is also driven by user rights. So not everyone will be able to write to everything. So this is all limited by exact user rights. Where are you allowed to, on the one hand, see the data, but then of course also where are you allowed to change, if at all. So this was a top-down effect. If we want to, we can also do this bottom-up. So go down to, for example, just a particular entity. and assume for clear jelly, for example, we know that the quarter 1 will be particularly successful, and we're assuming here a revenues of 150,000. So I can also directly enter this into the cell by just using the hash sign in front of the number. So I'm entering hash 150,000, and now we've increased the budget of 150,000. Again, that affected everything underneath. So for example, all the underlying month, all the underlying clients and so on that I used in the model. And I can see the new total is now 286,000. This was the write-back side of things. So very easy data entry on any level, high level, low level, but also modifications, copying of data and so on. What we can also do, and the final thing here that I would like to demonstrate, is the modeling aspect. So we have our data model here. In this case, the data model covers 5 dimensions, but that of course varies based on your requirements. And let's assume we want to simulate the acquisition of a new entity. So we just double click here. We see now those are the elements in our entity dimension. In this case, they are driven by 0, by the accounting system. But we can now, in addition to what in our accounting system, add new elements. So for example, we could say here, webinar company. And we make webinar company part of the total. So we've added webinar company, and I would like to add webinar company also to the total of all entities. This could of course also be a special subgroup or any option that you would like here. So we double click here on entities, just add this to it and save this. If I double click here now on the filter, I see now the webinar company. And now you've got exactly the same options that you saw before. You could say for a new webinar company, I'm expecting a total budget for 2016 of 200,000. So we now have the 200,000 again distributed, in this case linearly, as there are no existing numbers there. If I want to, I could also specify an allocation mechanism that is different to this, but let's leave it simple for the moment. Now I can just move back and have a look at how does this affect my total budget for the group. So I can see now 552,000. So in summary, a very easy way to manage planning, budgeting, forecasting requirements and also business model changes, very much focused on self-service, so putting the business user in charge. The final demonstration that I would like to cover in this seminar is in regards to web-based dashboards. And here I would like to show you a technology called Power BI that we quite like for data discovery purposes. Power BI is currently a free desktop product with the Power BI Designer, where users can design dashboards using this desktop application. But it's also available as a cloud-based service, so you can do the same things in the cloud, publish your dashboards, and then make them available either on the web or on mobile devices. And I quickly would like to demonstrate how this works. So let me just quickly switch to the Power BI Designer. So the Power BI Designer was loaded now, and now I can either use an existing source or I can start with a new one. I will start with an existing report, and again I'm using the same database that you saw before, the same data model, which is the zero data, the zero accounting services that was generated to the Clear Jelly service. So the same data model, but this in this case not within Excel, but provided or accessed from the Power BI Designer. And this is now the end result that Power BI Designer enables you to do. So you see a nice looking dashboard here where the users can interact on the dashboard, for example, choose a particular period. And as you can see, the data automatically adapts, or the dashboard elements. A cool thing in the Power BI Designer is also that you can switch to, or if you select a particular element, for example here SaaS, all the other ones will automatically reflect that change. So now I see the gauge for SaaS, the finance amount, and so on. So those are the financials on the same data model, but now for sales. We get even more interesting options in our dashboard. So we get, for example, a heat map where I can see how did my product sell, but also now geospatial representation. So if I click on a particular postcode, the map is automatically changed to this particular area, and I see now my results in 2026. So I can see if I move the mouse pointer here, 1301. So a quite interesting way to navigate on the dashboard. What I quickly would like to demonstrate now is how you get there, which is a really simple and powerful approach. So let's start by creating a new page. So we're starting now with a blank canvas. And on the right side here we have our data model with the elements of the data model. So in this case, this is the important one with the finance data. So we can just take, for example, the amounts of the finance data and drag them into our model. And now let's combine this with the account description. So we now see the account description. This is now a chart. We have now the option to easily change this to any other type. For example, make this a table. Make this a bit larger. Which shows now our the account results. Or let's make this all the way down. Then we can specify, we would also view this by month. So we just take here now the months into our dashboard as well, but we don't want to show this as a chart. We want to use the months as a selector. I have now here the months as a selector, where the user can select a particular period. As you can see, the results automatically adapt. The same thing can be done for the years. And again, we want to make this a selector. And then maybe finally add another one here for the chart as well. Again, we're just dragging the amount, maybe let's look at the results by regions, and dragging this down here. So with just a few mouse clicks, I was able to generate a nice interactive dashboard where the users can select a particular points of view, and everything will automatically adapt. This was for finance. Let's do another one quickly to show you the even more powerful features that we saw before. So let's create one also on our sales data, which is a little bit interesting in regards to the analysis. So let's say we want to have a look at the sales amount. Look at the sales amount for different products. Now we see a chart here. If we want to convert this into the heat map that we saw before, we can just click the button here. Now we have the heat map. We do the same thing as we had before. We allow the users to change the year and the month. Make both of them filters. Position them a little bit more here. And then also we want to make this a bit larger maybe, so we've got space. And we also want to now have an analysis by Geospatial. Again, just dragging this into the canvas, selecting the detail, and in our case we want to use now the postcode of the data that is linked with the data. So the contact address postal code, drag this here as well. And now, as opposed to using a bar chart here, we just quickly convert this into a geospatial model. It's a bit larger. And if we drill into Australia, we can see now our data here. Oops, let's make this a bit bigger. So our data is here. Let's make this even a bit more bigger. So in this case, different Sydney suburbs. And if we click here, we can exactly see the results. But if we also click on the result, for example, for postcodes 2015, we can see that the heat map automatically changes as well. So again, a very easy way to enable very powerful dashboarding options. This report can be, with one click, published to the Power BI web server, and from there it's then available in exactly the same fashion in the web browser, so that the users don't need to have anything installed, and also in a native app. So for example, on your iPad, you could immediately use this dashboard with exactly the same functionalities. So this concludes the demonstration part of our webinar today. Before we move into the questions, I quickly would like to point out two things. Initially, our Fast Start program. If you found the demonstrations interesting and the options that were presented, we offer a program that you can implement those options in your environment in either 1 day or 2 day workshop, and we will sit together with you, look at your requirements, make a recommendation for the best technology approach, and implement an initial prototype, which helps you to exactly evaluate if what we propose meets your needs without any risk, apart from a small fee for the program. And on the other hand, it enables us to understand your requirements much better, and then also make, after the workshop, an exact recommendation what we recommend in regards to moving forward, what a potential project plan could be, and what the investments are that are required. The next thing that I quickly would like to point out is our APAC Cloud Survey. The APAC Cloud Survey is the biggest survey for web-based cloud services, also for cloud-based business services. So in particular for CRM, office productivity, systems like Google Apps, Office 365, accounting systems like, for example, Xero, MYOB, SASU, and so on, or marketing and CRM systems, and of course also business intelligence. If you use any of those solutions, please participate in our survey. As a reward, we will make available to all respondents the full report, which will show you how are people using cloud-based web services in Australia, and who are the major players, what are the strengths, weaknesses, and so on. So if you're interested, please go to apaccloudsurvey.com and go through the survey. It only really takes 3 minutes. Finally, we offer a variety of get-togethers and networking events in addition to our webinars. So if you're interested, please look on our website at the meetup area, where we run events for better using Excel and business intelligence with Excel, and also one for cloud-based business services. So if you're interested, please check this out. For any questions, please don't hesitate to get back to us on these details. It looks we don't have any questions around the webinar today. So this concludes our session. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to contact us, and we are more than happy to help you. And thank you very much for attending the webinar today. Goodbye.